Letter 18, Raphael at Rome, by Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. The multitude of pictures and statues at Rome is such that it is quite impossible to give the most cursory account of the galleries. I have been more struck even than I expected by what I have seen. The limits of man's power appear enlarged to the uttermost verge of all that the imagination can conceive of beautiful and great. The admirable proportion of the temple-like chambers in which the finest relics of ancient statuary are placed, the snatches of views that you catch, from open windows, of the papal gardens and the country around the city, renders a visit to the Vatican a step out of everyday life into a world adorned by the works of the highest genius of all countries and all times. It is a great pity that they are not arranged in a manner to instruct the spectator as to the age and schools to which they belong. The collection at the Vatican greatly needs to be regulated by enlightened criticism. But here, everything is done from paltry motives. A man, who in some way can command patronage, writes a catalogue of all the statues, and changes their numbers and places, to make it necessary that you should buy his book, so that those who go with the elaborate and learned works of German critics in their hands find every reference a mistake and get hopelessly embroiled. It is said that all the works of ancient Grecian sculpture bear the character of divine repose, and that those statues which are in attitudes of action are the works of Greeks indeed, but executed when Greece was a province, at the command of Roman masters. Among such is the Apollo Belvedere, which is not adorned by the faultless perfection of Athenian art, yet who can criticize? As I entered the compartment in which he stands, a divine presence seemed to fill the chamber. The godlike archer is stepping forward, his gesture and look breathe the eagerness and gladness of victory. In some sort, this statue is the ideal of a youthful hero, but he is not human. There is no trace of the chivalrous feeling that even in triumph honors the fallen. He is above fear and above pity. From room to room the eye is so fed by sights of beauty that the sense aches at them. Truly the limbs unwillingly fail. From the halls of the statues you go through long galleries filled with funereal urns, ancient maps, and old tapestry worked from Raphael's cartoons, into rooms where the paintings are. It is managed so that when you have passed through all, you quit the rooms by the loggia of Raphael, and the Swiss on guard does not permit you to return. There is no great harm in this, as it would be nearly impossible to walk the whole way back again. Visitors ought, nevertheless, to be allowed to enter by this door at choice, that they may at once reach the pictures without the extra labor of traversing the extensive galleries that lead to them. Of the oil paintings we see here, the San Geronimo by Domenichino is perhaps the finest. Of the Transfiguration I have before spoken. As a composition, it is esteemed the grandest picture in the world, but I turn from it to others, to the Madonna di Foligno, for instance, of an earlier date, in which there is a more heavenly grace, an expression of celestial and pure beauty, an emanation of the immortal soul, superior to any perfection of coloring or grouping. But it is among the frescoes of Raphael that I have lingered longest, with the greatest delight. These were the first works of this matchless painter, when called to Rome. He had been soliciting leave to be associated with Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo in painting the halls of the Palazzo Vecchio, at Florence, when Pope Julius Roman II called him to Rome and gave him in charge to adorn the walls of the Vatican. At this time Michelangelo was, I will not say, his rival, but as he painted the Sistine Chapel while Raphael was engaged upon the Vatican, a passion of generous emulation rose in the heart of the latter that spurred him on to work with indefatigable ardor. As Lanzi tells us, the subjects chosen for these halls elevated his imagination. They were not scenes from old mythology, but the mysteries of the noblest science, the most august circumstances pertaining to religion, and military deeds whose result established peace and faith in the world. None better than Raphael could achieve this work, for of all men he had firmest hold of that golden chain which is let down from heaven, and with a divine enthusiasm ravishes our souls, made to the image of God, and stirs us up to comprehend the innate and incorruptible beauty to which we were once created. He began by the figures of theology, philosophy, poetry, and jurisprudence on the arched roof of one of the rooms. The figures of theology and poetry, particularly the latter, are in the highest style of mystic art. The picture named The Dispute of the Sacrament, if that be the name of a picture which is, after all, nameless, covers one of the walls. There is an assemblage of all the doctors of the Church, and among them Raphael boldly placed Dante, with his laurel crown, and still more boldly Savonarola, who 10 years before had been publicly burned at Florence as a heretic. Above these groups, heaven opens and the Trinity and the angels are congregated. By the lovers of the mystic school, this picture is preferred to every other, yet I was more struck by that which represents the vision driving Heliodorus from the temple. The story, as told in the Apocrypha. It is deemed the triumph of art to adorn the real with something grander than meets the ordinary gaze, but to paint the superhuman, and convey to the eyes the image of that which surpasses the might of visible objects, and can scarcely be conceived by the strongest effort of the imagination, is that which Raphael only could achieve. In this fresco, the vision of a horse with a terrible rider fills the beholder with awe. The one shakes terror from his looks, while the horse may be seen to neigh and breathe destruction around. The figures of the two youths, notable in strength and excellent in beauty, who are driving the spoiler with scourges from the temple, are divine in swiftness and might. Celestial indignation animates their gestures, and motion was never painted so real, so impetuous, so uncontrollable. This was among the latter works of Raphael. Whether it be, as M. Rio argues, that falling from that high devotional state of mind which inspired his younger works, he could no longer rise to ideal perfection, or that the remains of antique art at Rome, and the simple and majestic pencil of Michelangelo, in the Sistine Chapel, giving larger scope to his ideas of composition, he began a new style, and the powers of man being limited, the attaining something new, however excellent, occasioned him to lose a portion of that which he before possessed. There can be no doubt that his manner entirely changed. I am not always disposed to regret this alteration. It has been the cause of a variety in excellence, for if we miss in his latter pictures the portraiture of innocence and divine love, represented in the Madonnas and saints of his first style, we have something else, which no one but Raphael could give. To understand me, let me ask you to call to mind the Madonna di Foligno in the Vatican, and the Descent from the Cross in the Palazzo Borghese. The first beams with an adorable and beatified sweetness, all purity and love. In the second, do you remember, besides the many other pity-striking figures, the St. John? He is holding one end of the cloth which enfolds his dead master's body. The expression of agony proper to the beloved disciple struggles with the exertion of strength necessitated by the act on which he is employed. The resolution to perform the rites due to the dead is mingled with yearning veneration for the corpse of him whom he passionately adored. These pictures are the triumph of Christian art. Then recollect the frescoes of the history of Psyche in the Farnesina, and the youthful and nymph-like loveliness of the Galatea. These are specimens of his last style, and form your own opinion as to his improvement or otherwise. Whichever way you incline, there is one conclusion to which you must necessarily come, that Raphael in both styles, the Christian and the pagan, is superior to every other painter. High actions and high passions best describing. Day after day, often accompanied by our accomplished friend, whose taste and knowledge are invaluable, we visit the galleries of Rome. In one small chamber of the Barberini Palace are 3 gems of art, and in these, expression appeared triumphant over skill, to the disadvantage of Raphael. A portrait of the Fornarina is contrasted with that of Beatrice Cenci, by Guido. In vain I was told to compare the exquisite finish, the faultless painting of cheek and lip, of the disagreeable-looking beauty, with the comparatively imperfect touches of Guido's pencil. The innocent, tearful face of the young and lovely girl, whose look expresses the self-pity which must have swelled in her heart, as she thought, how she, from very horror of crime, was become a murderess, put to shame the dark eyes and penciled brows of her, whose passion was devoid of tenderness. It is gratifying to see the work of an English painter in a Roman church. The picture by Mr. Severn in the Cathedral of San Paolo Fuori del Mura is a beautiful composition, and shows to great advantage. It is the first work of a Protestant artist admitted into a Roman church. The high esteem in which Mr. Severn was held in Rome ensured him this distinction. I have visited with great pleasure the studios of modern statuaries. They are mostly now employed in portraying or idealizing a Capuan peasant woman, La Grazia, whose beauty is of an expressive, mobile, and grand cast. The best representation of her is as Hagar in the desert. The Angel of the Day of Judgment, by Tenerani, is very fine, and Mr. Gibson's studio contains statues admirably executed in that classic taste, which he so successfully cultivates.